Welcome, everyone. We have more excitement that I think what we can transmit to you. This is an activity that has been on our mind for a long time, and on a recent visit that was coordinated by Angel, and we met Gilberto, that I will introduce him in a seconds. This just flourish. The idea is to share what's going on in Puerto Rico with a new community, as I like to describe it. It's a new community that is multicultural, that is diverse. It's a community that everyone that gets in touch with it, they say that the most that they like is the people, the warmth of the people. And so in reality, we are creating a new Puerto Rico. And this Puerto Rico, as I envision, is composed of our traditional residents, is composed of an important group that have decided on putting their residence in Puerto Rico, their lives, moving their families to Puerto Rico and create impact from Puerto Rico, and a very important group that is our successful diaspora that more and more want to be part of the future of Puerto Rico. And they have been successful in the continental US, and they feel a responsibility of either move back to Puerto Rico or to contribute from the US. So by creating this new type of community, we in the Partnership for Modern Puerto Rico have 10 legacy projects. One of them, which is very important for us, is mentorship. We have an initiative that we call it Beyond. It's been very successful, and I like it to mention it because I think that is so unique. I think we have taken the best of different initiatives and put it together. What YPO does as a forum mechanism, we have added mentorship concepts with our members, our senior members. We have created a figure of advocates, and then not only that, we are providing this group of members on the Beyond program the opportunity of sharing in all of our activities. So that in itself is a mentorship process. But today, why we're here? We're here because it's time to begin to let all the community of Puerto Rico know of the unique new industries that Puerto Rico is not only manufacturing. Now Puerto Rico have a lot of new opportunities for our youth, for the Puerto Rican diaspora that is returning. And our idea is this is the first one, but we will do a series of conversations on this new type of businesses that have never been opportunities in Puerto Rico, together with the inspiring journeys of the people that have moved to Puerto Rico. So that's the idea, to inspire and to show the power of the opportunities that now we have in Puerto Rico. So that idea, again, Gilberto Marzuach, thanks to Angel for putting the meeting together. He said, we are in, and this is the first one. So Gilberto, I would like if you can do some introduction.
Thank you, Alberto. Welcome to the Universidad Sagrado Corazón, and welcome specifically to our Ferrer Rangel School of Communication. It's one of the few endowed schools, university schools in Puerto Rico, and we are tonight at the main TV and film production studio of the school. This is actually a classroom where we are, and we're fortunate that we can use it today, but this is a classroom of the school. I want to thank Alberto Bacó and his team at the Partnership for a Modern Puerto Rico for this opportunity. I want to thank our trustee, Angel Torres, for putting us together and helping start this process and hopefully this collaboration for the benefit of Puerto Rico. I'm going to tell you a little bit about us, about Sagrado Corazón. This is a great year for us. We're celebrating 145 years of our educational project. The 10th of April of 1880, the first three sisters of the Sacred Heart landed in the port of San Juan to open a small school for women. And today we are the oldest continuing private educational mission in the island. For the first 55 years of our history, we're a K-12 school for young women. In the mid-30s, we became a university college. We were the first, and I believe the only university in Puerto Rico that was imagined from its beginning as a liberal arts college. And it had at its core a humanistic vision of education. That was the legacy of the sisters. Today, we are a modern university, as you can see from our campus. We have more than 5,000 students. We only have this campus in Santurce, and we're organized around 5 schools. Where we are today, the Ferrer Rangel School of Communication is our leading school. We have more than 1,700 students here, both in graduate and undergraduate programs. Our School of Arts, Design, and Creative Industries, that was initiated in 2022. This is the fastest growing school in the university. It has about 1,300 students. We also have a School of Health and Sciences. It's mostly preparatory school for graduate studies in the health professions. And in the fall, we're going to be opening our School of Business. If you walk over to the School of Communication today, you probably saw the construction and the signage for the new School of Business. And the 5th school is our school, is our core curriculum, is our general school that handles our core curriculum for all our 4,500 undergraduate students. That's a school that we're going to be launching in the next year. We are a mission-driven, nonprofit university led by a board of trustees of really committed individuals from Puerto Rico, like Angel here. And we serve students from all over Puerto Rico, from all over the island. And we are a growing university. Our students, we are committed to our students, and we expect all of them to develop into productive, entrepreneurial citizens of Puerto Rico. And one distinguishing feature of what we do here, and one of the reasons why this collaboration is so critical, is that we expect all our students before they graduate to participate and produce a substantial entrepreneurial project. And that's all students, not only the business students, it's all students. So we have right now in the university more than 4,000 student projects at different stages of development, from idea to development to execution. And what our commitment is, open opportunities for them and possibilities no matter what you study, so that they can contribute to the growth and development of Puerto Rico. So putting speakers such as the ones that we'll have here today and that we'll have hopefully in other moments in the future, will afford our students the opportunity to learn what other people are doing, to see the possibilities that are available to them, and hopefully inspire them and motivate them to one day sit here and be interviewed, and so they can tell their story. So I want to thank you for being here. I thank you for your collaboration. I hope that we have a successful and productive session today with Alberto and our distinguished guests. Thank you so much.
Gracias. Well, I would like our colleagues and that will share the conversation with me. Misraín, you have your Misraín Beltrán. He just arrived back to Puerto Rico. William Bill Buell. Of the three, the first one that I met. And Anthony Emtman. So I will tell you a few things that you don't know. And I hope that they also will be able to tell you things that you don't know. Bill, I will begin with you because you were the first one that I met of the three of you. And so you know how this works. I met Bill around 2014 in one of the summits that we used to make promoting Act 2022. And all of a sudden, and then after Maria, Bill calls me. That was 2018. He was in Puerto Rico. So this movement works magic. People not necessarily move immediately. Some of them have moved 3 weeks after learning from Puerto Rico, but others takes time. Bill, please share with us something from your formative years, from your journey that you would like to share that really you think that was an event or experience that really changed you and what you learned of it.
Sure, thank you, Alberto. And I just want to thank you for putting this event on. And I'll note that in meeting Alberto in 2014, I had no idea at that time in a big conference he was putting on. He had a very important and busy role, and we met just for a little bit of time. But then many years later, the opportunity to run into each other again, and we become really great friends. And it's one of those sort of things where you don't expect things to happen in the way that they do, but it's wonderful, pleasant surprise when they do. One comment first, and that is related to that, is that there's a saying that people overestimate what can be accomplished immediately, and they underestimate what can be accomplished in the long term. And in that sense, essentially what Alberto and the Puerto Rican government put into place back in 2014, 2012 in the form of a variety of different acts to try to encourage international business and financial businesses and different kinds of businesses have taken time, but over time the fruits of those efforts have magnified and really started to pay dividends for Puerto Rico. So super excited about our friendship and to be invited to be a part of this. As far as formative experience goes, I'm 62, so I've had a lot of formative experiences in my life. I look back a little bit to think about like what kind of was maybe a most important one. When I was a boy, my father was a career officer in the military, and at that time, they moved officers in the military every 3 years. And so as a boy growing up, every 3 years of my life, we moved from one place to some other place. And in that era, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have cell phones, anything like that. So when you moved as a little kid, your whole world disappeared. And you were faced with an entirely new world where you had to figure things out. And that meant you had to learn how to make friends. You also had to learn how to like connect the dots with all the things that were in front of you in this new place. And what I learned from that was really to be forward-looking, embrace change, figure out like what you have in front of you, what's good about where you are, and how do you make something out of that. And also the other thing about that is how to narrate your own experience, both to yourself and to other people. And coming out of that experience of moving all the time and having to deal with all that turmoil, which I know was traumatic and difficult, but at the same time, I told myself it's making me stronger. I'm better at a lot of things than I otherwise would be because of that. It essentially propelled me into a world where, as a business person, and there's a few people from our team who are here, and I know that they will be very familiar with me saying this, but essentially embracing the struggle and really jumping into things and looking forward. You can't change the past. You can narrate your past and you can help yourself to understand it better, but you can't change it. What you can change is the future. And if you run into the future and you embrace everything that's around you and try to understand, how do I actually connect these things and make something different out of this? Where can this go? That's been an incredibly powerful force for me as a business person individually. And I think for our team in terms of like creating this kind of, it's a little chaotic, but at the same time, people are resilient and they really can make things change if they're ready to do that and they're not afraid of that. So that's a really important formative development for me.
Thank you for sharing. Anthony, you were of the three. The second one I met, I remember Dan Moore had told me, I want to introduce you this guy that he runs a kind of a little Pantera fund. So
very small.
Its name is Ikigai.
Yeah.
But he's doing very well, and he decided to move into Puerto Rico. And there's something that I want to say. There's nothing wrong with our new residents that doesn't want to speak out. I understand that there have been a lot of noise, but it's important to say who have always said yes. Bill have always said yes when I have asked him for being available. Anthony have always said yes. He even participated in a feature in, I think it was Bloomberg at some point. And not everyone is willing to do that. That's brave, and that is important for us in Puerto Rico to be able to make our story. So Anthony, I know some of your very interesting stories, but would you like to share one of your youth that comes to your mind as very strong?
Yeah, so it's a bit like the concept that Bill mentioned. Big believer in whether you think you can or can't, you're right. And today, more than ever, that is true. You know, we all have access to the entirety of human knowledge in our pocket and an AI tool that can help you do whatever you want. And so conceptually, if you think about your mind as a muscle, this fear of failure muscle is often what holds us back. And if I were to ask you, tell me a story about one of the first times that you remember letting your parents down as you were growing up, or your friend and family. And the first thing that came to mind right now is probably maybe you broke something in the house, or you stained something nice, or it was an early car accident. And that was a really big deal to you at that time because it was your biggest failure, and you probably cried because you were young, you were a child. For me, I grew up on a family farm, big family farm, and so as soon as your feet could reach the pedals, they put you behind the steering wheel of the truck. And that just happened a little earlier for me than most because I'm pretty tall. But I get in the truck and I'm reaching the pedals. It's a stick shift too, so it was also learning a new skill. And I peering over the steering wheel, and I just drive it right into a big old ditch. Ugh. And I hop on the two-way, just a radio, to call my dad. And I say, 18 to 15? And he said, yep, go ahead. I crashed it. And he was in the same field, and so I got out of the truck and I walk, and I got tears all over my face walking through the field. I'm probably 9 years old, gotta go tell my dad. And in my head, I was like, I ruined it. It's done. Truck's gone. Just cost him 20 grand or whatever the truck cost. And I get in the sprayer with him, and he just asked me, well, did you put it in four-wheel drive and try and back it out? No. Oh, easy fix. In my head, the whole world had ended.
Yeah.
But to him, it was just another day. And if you fast forward and you ask yourself that same question today, what is the biggest failure that you've experienced recently? Maybe it's a failed business. All I've ever done is build businesses that fail. That's what entrepreneurship is you just try things and they don't work out, and Every once in a while, something works, but most of the time you're failing, which is really just learning. All of your adaptation comes from learning. If you go to the gym, you're not gonna get stronger if you don't fail, if you don't ever push yourself. It's the same thing in life. So you have to go fail in order to grow. And that has been the most formidable lesson to me is I grew up on a farm. It was a safe place to fail. You get to learn things way earlier than many otherwise would. And then I went to the Air Force Academy. I was an officer in the military for a decade, and all they do there is just tear you down. It doesn't matter how strong you are, how smart you are. The whole premise of military training is to find that point where you're going to fail and push you past it. And then realize that it's not all about me. I've got a team around me. The team's gonna lift me up. I need to lift myself up. You get to the other side of the failure and you realize, I'm gonna be okay. It's all right. I still got a roof over my head and I'm still breathing. I've still got parents that love me, friends and family that love me. And you push forward. And you just do that over and over and over again, just on a larger and larger scale.
Excellent. Would you share your story of that you could not become a pilot, the pilot you wanted to become?
Yeah, so certainly military recruiting is a game of information, particularly withholding information. So my grandfather was a fighter pilot in the Air Force, big mentor and inspiration of mine. He flew F-101s in the Korean War. He's why I went to the Air Force Academy. I'm sure everyone's seen Top Gun, and you remember the scene where Goose had to eject and hits his head on the canopy. That is effectively the reason why I can't fly, is I am too tall. I would do the same thing, I'd pull the goose. But I did not find that out until I was a sophomore at the academy. You don't get summers off, they just put you to work. And I went down to Luke Air Force Base, which was and is probably the #1 F-16 base in the world. So I'm a 18, 19-year-old kid, and I'm gonna get an incentive ride to go up in an F-16, and the pilot's gonna say, take this, and take the stick, try this, try that. And they wouldn't let me. I had to go through a pre-flight physical. It's like, how tall are you? Sitting down, I think the height limit was 36 inches, and I clocked in at 41 or 42. I was not close, not even close. And I went all the way up to the 06. The colonel was like, give me a waiver, please. This is what I want to do. And he said, son, no, just you're not close. And so I had to shift my whole career and life trajectory at that point. That is where my first North Star that governs all of the decisions that I make came about, and that is that I want to engineer my life to invest and spend as much possible time as I can with friends and family that I love and care about and love and care about me. And the way I'd seen my dad do that, growing up on a farm, he didn't have to ask anyone if I wanted to go ride in the tractor with him. I'd just tell mom, hey, I want to go see dad. We drive out, ride with him for 8 hours, and good to go. So that was a massive life pivot.
Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Misraín, welcome to Puerto Rico.
Thank you.
It's an amazing story. Part of what's going on in Puerto Rico is bringing back more people than what you really think, and talented Puerto Ricans that we need them back in Puerto Rico. And through the international insurance, through what is going on in that industry, that we will get to that, to what's going on in FinTech, in blockchain, in InsurTech. We will get to that, but first we want to know of some anecdote of your life, how you left Puerto Rico, what has impacted you that has created the Misraín that we see today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. And I'm being here today. I'm more inspired. I know we're supposed to be inspiring, but I'm more inspired just by everything that's going on here, by everyone here. So thanks for having me here. I think it's interesting that formative experiences that you guys both mentioned were as children growing up. Mine is also as a child growing up here in Puerto Rico. So I was born in Humacao. Lived in Caguas for most of my teenage years, and at 14 years old, we moved to New York to pursue better education, better opportunities. But my biggest transformative experience that I could think about right now, it happened back in the 90s. I was in, I don't know, 10, 11 years old. And we had, I don't know if we have it today, you guys could correct me, but we have this math Olympics. So it was the Olimpiada de Matemática. And I competed, so we have them, I hear some nods. I competed in the school level, right? And I was like, okay, I did good, I won, right? I was good. This little guy from Caguas, Puerto Rico, it's doing something. And it started building confidence in me. And then I competed at district level, regional level. And at the regional level, you go to the island level. And I ended up getting third place in the island level. And I was so proud. I just felt like opportunities, possibilities had opened up in front of me, right? So that was my first formative experience. It's like there is more beyond what's around me. There's many more opportunities. And then the second part of that was that I learned that I was good at numbers, that I like numbers, and that I'm good at numbers. And today, my career is in numbers. So it just carried on. Maybe not as exciting as yours, but that was my formative experience. And it guides me today.
I would like to ask the three of you, while you were in college years, did you visualize what you're doing today, or how have you changed your mind? Tell us a little bit about your process of from the day you graduated to where you are now. Have you your opportunities have developed? Bill.
Absolutely not. I got an economics degree from the University of Texas at Austin and thought maybe I could be an economist. I went and tried to get a job as an economist and discovered that you really needed to have a master's degree to be an economist. I didn't have in my mind that I wanted to go and get a master's degree. So I got a job at a bank and started basically doing what it turns out I'm pretty good at, which is solving problems. And while there's been a fair amount of serendipity in my career, basically going from one problem to another and figuring out how to solve problems and getting eventually asked to solve problems, it took a while for me to realize that really what I love is complex problems and uncertainty. And that I was slowly, my career was gravitating towards solving problems and then going on to a more complex problem. And kind of like Anthony said, every day you face a problem, sometimes you fail, plenty often you fail, but the next day you wake up and you're still there and you know some new things that you didn't know before, and you can go after the things that you love, and guess what? You're now more capable than you were before, and the problems that you can solve are even bigger, even though you lost one along the way. And so I'm a problem solver at heart, and I've been doing that for my whole career. And then here in Puerto Rico, I've been invited to work with a team and to get to tackle some amazing, exciting problems that represent phenomenal growth opportunity for us as a company and for me individually and for all the people that are around that I get to work with. So that's what happened in my college versus my ultimate career.
Okay. Anthony?
Yeah, life almost never goes according to plan. You're gonna have a pretty bad time if that's what you're expecting. And my second North Star was, at the Air Force Academy. It's a leadership laboratory. You are learning how to become a leader. And knowing myself, if you're familiar with the 5 love languages, my primary love language is acts of service, which if you believe in servant leadership, you are there to serve others. And my second North Star ended up becoming to lead a globally impactful organization that has the deliberate goal of having a positive impact on humanity. It's very broad. Globally could be the family that I end up building, or it could be the traditional sense of global. Anywhere in between was happy. I'd be happy with. I'm a relatively intellectually promiscuous individual, and so whatever the organization ends up being is going to be fun. Parenting's a challenge. Building a tech company is a challenge. Either could be quite enjoyable. But having that North Star Both of those North Stars have served as curators, so that anytime an opportunity comes along, saying yes or no gets run through those lenses. Does it fit this North Star? Does it fit this North Star? And more often than not, you're going to end up with a lot of no's. And when that hell yes comes along, you know it, you see it, and you take advantage of it. And if you don't have a prescriptive plan, it's easier to move like water, so to speak, be adaptable.
Very, very good answer. That's the opportunities just come, you have to grab them. Misraín, when you began in your current company, do you believe that you will be doing what you're doing?
No, not at all. So I knew that I was good in numbers, as I mentioned, right? So I knew that I wanted to do something that had to do with numbers. Okay, architecture, engineering, accounting, I did the homework. Accounting seemed to be the more risk-averse, less risky career. So I chose what I thought at the time was the less risky career, the safe bet, right? I'm a planner, I like to plan things, and I've been hitting certain goals as my career goes. But it came a point in my career that you plateau, you hitting those goals, and then you get there, and there's now what, right? Like, so what happens now, right? What happens now? Then opportunities come your way, and you're like, oh, there's plenty of opportunities. I'm just not being flexible and open to those opportunities because I'm so set on this path. So that kind of happened along my career. And from strict accounting, I ended up pivoting slightly to finance and analysis. And most recently, where the company that I'm working on now, I'm supporting the company build what we're doing here in Puerto Rico, which I would have never thought that it was something that I was going to be able to do coming straight out of college, right? I never thought even insurance was in the periphery of what I wanted to do coming out of college. I didn't learn much about insurance in school. You come out, I got a job in the industry, and I see how much dynamic the industry is. It's not a born industry. It's not an old industry. Now, folks have this perception of boring, old, stale, and it's really not. There's so much to do in the industry. There is, so many different functions: marketing, IT, capital markets, investor relations. There's underwriting, legal. There's a plethora of things. There's products. There's private equity, private debt. There is so many things within the industry that there's a lot of places you could go. So yeah, I guess short answer, no. It's not. I'm not today where I expect it to be, but I am at a much better place, from my perspective, by being flexible, similar to what the gentleman said.
Thank you. So we are getting a little bit into the industries that each of you are working right now. Interesting, Bill, we had a conversation recently where I described, on my perspective, what I see happening in the international insurance scenario. And you translated very well into the way you're dealing with it and you're working with it, and you put it in the perspective of what's really happening. What I mentioned, Bill, was that it's not a long time, it's 10 years, but people are beginning to realize that there's a niche for Puerto Rico in the international insurance arena. And that traditionally in Puerto Rico, the language of the politicians is create jobs, create jobs, create jobs. But I think that language has to change, because in Puerto Rico, we don't have that big need of huge creation of jobs that we used to have. So we don't really need huge manufacturing plants to move to Puerto Rico, because all that they will do is take jobs out of the other manufacturing plant that is already here. My theory is that we need to create jobs that elevate the opportunities, and those are the jobs that people from the US would like to come back to Puerto Rico to do. And the insurance industry, international insurance industry, the blockchain industry provides those kinds of opportunity. And it's not only that, at the view of the outside world, it sees Puerto Rico as part of a sophisticated community in the business world. So I was mentioning all this long way of describing, and Bill, in a short way, described what is really going on. And so I would like you to tell the group a little bit of what you do, your company, and your vision of Puerto Rico in the international insurance world.
So I'm the CEO of a company called Advantage Insurance. We're an insurance holding company that's based here in San Juan, Puerto Rico. We've been here for 20 years, pretty small for a long time. I've been here for 4 years running the company, so there's many people who came before me who put in place various different kinds of building blocks for the kind of business that we're building currently, including Alberto, in terms of the different acts and supports for the international insurance business. We also have an international bank. So we're very much in the vein of taking the different kinds of initiatives that the government of Puerto Rico has put in place and trying to build on those. That business has been growing slowly over time. One of the things that's happened in the period of time that I've been here, our insurance part of our business is a kind of insurance that we provide to high net worth and ultra high net worth people around the globe. And we have a team that travels to different parts of the world, to places where the advisors of those people who need our product or want our product or for whom our product is useful sit. And they sit in the major capitals of the world, and they essentially have different kinds of options to buy financial services products that come from different kinds of jurisdictions. And there's a variety of jurisdictions that have historically served that particular market. An example would be Bermuda, which has a very long history of providing insurance products, is highly well known around the world as a stable, well-regulated financial services jurisdiction where companies and people and families can buy products that meet their needs, and they can feel comfortable that the environment in which they're going to have their products are going to sit is safe for them. And one of the things that's developed over the last few years is that as we travel the world, as our team travels the world and meets with the advisors in different places, Singapore, Hong Kong, London, in the US, all around, is that the reputation of Puerto Rico has been slowly gaining currency. And it's one of those kind of things similar to what I said before, and that is that the government can't say, we just want to be good now, and we want everybody to come here and do business here. This is a slow process. It takes time for things to change, but the reputation of Puerto Rico is changing. And it's changing from one of, that's some place in the Caribbean that's somehow associated with the US, to a place where there's financial services companies that are traveling around the world with highly professional team members that are representing a kind of a culture and a level of regulatory sophistication that hadn't been there before. And that's changing the reputation of the country. And it's changing the reputation of the country, at least in our business, in the eyes of people who are decision makers for major capital flows around the world, who make decisions about where they're going to invest money, where they feel like they may, companies that they see and hear about that do different things in different parts of the world, those are going to be interesting. None of this is immediate. This is not like a tax giveaway where you give someone something, it's not transactional, it's reputational, and it's a building of a brand that's based on a culture of a balance of regulatory security and safety, but not regulatory overreach that stifles innovation. And so you have this really interesting environment here where the regulatory environment is perceived and getting perceived as being strong and safe, but the business community that's here feels like the regulatory environment is supportive of being action-oriented and actually doing things, which is the big challenge for the government of any place to balance out because you have competing interests for things. So we perceive big changes happening, and they're really because of the fact that people like Alberto have taken steps many years ago to change things. Rubén Helly's here, he's gonna ask us some questions. His father was one of the primary drivers of early changes, Act 399, which is the name of this particular evening, in terms of making some of the changes that have slowly but surely put in place things that have made a big difference. So we're very excited, and to be here tonight is really exciting for us because one of our biggest challenges, we have a team of about 60 people, young people, professionals, lawyers, accountants, really smart people who care and who want to succeed, who embrace the struggle. But one of the things that we work really hard at and have to work really hard at is basically developing a flow of candidates and students and people who want to come into that entrepreneurial kind of world. Each of the other speakers who are here tonight live in that world. And it's jump into the challenge and struggle with the things that are in front of you and fall down and get up and do it again and always look forward. And the environment now is it's basically for a number of years really been encouraging that. So we're very excited about that. I hope that's kind of in the direction of what you were thinking.
It's very good. As a matter of fact, I want to take the opportunity of introducing Rubén Helly. We will have a time for questions and answers, and Rubén will help us with guiding, leading that part of our conversation. But you mentioned Rubén Sr. I will never forget in 2014, we went with Juan Carlos Suarez, my undersecretary, and the Commissioner of Insurance, Angie Wayne, to London for a tour of all the companies. And we were like a curiosity. Who are these people from Puerto Rico? What they are talking about? So that's why I say it's not that long. At that time, nobody knew what was 399 and the International Insurance Center. So I learned two things at that trip. That was that we need to promote because you cannot assume that people know what you have to sell. The second one was that the insurance industry is an amazing industry. The limitations that we have as an island, and if we studied here locally and all that more, we are said that banking was everything. And up to that point, I was 50 something, is that I realized how important and how interesting and sophisticated was the insurance industry. It was that trip to London to visit all the big companies. And Misraín, in line with what you said, I think that now with all the FinTech, InsurTech, the opportunities are increasing.
Yeah, that's right. One thing that I would add to what Bill was saying about Puerto Rico's attractiveness to the industry, right? We really feel like Puerto Rico could be a true, legitimate global hub for insurance and reinsurance, right? It really can. And I think we're going there. We're definitely going in that way, and we're happy to be part of that. actually, well, super excited to be part of that. But out on top of the very important regulatory environment, right, that you mentioned, that Bill mentioned, we have a very strategic location in America, right? So it serves, Puerto Rico could serve, and it serves as an access point for companies, global companies, to do business. In North America, in South America, we have a strong relationship with the United States. So I think, when you think of the likes of Bermuda or even Cayman Islands, Puerto Rico could absolutely develop itself to be a big player, in my opinion, even bigger than them in the industry.
So let's talk a little bit about blockchain, crypto, and this other exciting world that in Puerto Rico, we also have an important global presence. And I think that these worlds interact more and more. Cybersecurity, ease of transactions, speed of transactions, all these capabilities that the blockchain technology brings, it's unique, this combination that we are presenting today. But I would like for Anthony to tell us a little bit of what he does and of his views on the blockchain industry and what you have seen in Puerto Rico of the blockchain industry. I will tell one last anecdote. I tell every young person that I think I can influence a little bit, you have the unique opportunity in Puerto Rico of getting to know top people on the blockchain and crypto industry. And when I say top, is in the top 100 and top 10 that live in Puerto Rico. Why is that important? Because you can do your own judgment if what they are doing makes sense or not. And I have gotten to know one of the most brilliant people that are devoting all of their time to blockchain technology and crypto. And what that tells me, that they know what they are doing. And they are dedicating not the capital that they have, which that may be easy. It's their time, which is the most valuable asset that you have. So that kind of evaluation, we in Puerto Rico, if only that, is very important of the presence of this industry that we have in Puerto Rico. So Anthony, what you can share with us about what you do?
There's two common themes that we kind of talk about here. The first one is what I call stories are human, humans create culture, and culture drives progress. Each one of those is important. As a whole, culture driving progress, like humans, we all love to think that we are these logical, rational decision makers, but the reality is we're emotional. If information was all we needed, every single one of us would be healthy and wealthy. So because that's not true, there's something missing, there's a gap there. And that gap is often emotion. It's like, what leads humans to action? Oh, stories are human, humans create culture, culture drives progress. And so the culture of Puerto Rico is just in the very early innings of becoming known to the rest of the world. The brand value of Puerto Rico, I've only been here 4.5 years, and it has just absolutely skyrocketed in terms of who's heard of it in the States, their perception of it. If I would have asked their perception 4 years ago, it would have been significantly lesser than what it is today. Like, it is coming around to a brand that is respected. And this has happened in half a decade. And to your earlier quote of we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. if you extrapolate out what we can accomplish in Puerto Rico, if we continue to invest in the brand of Puerto Rico on the global stage, 10 years from now, it's going to look pretty different and quite exciting. And the second common facet is building trust. We're up here talking about insurance, InsurTech, FinTech, blockchain, crypto, across all of that. The common theme is just building trust. And it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. We'll throw out all of these terms, but the reality is at the core, all we're trying to do is shake hands. Whether it's an individual to an individual, a business to a business, we're just trying to shake hands and say, hey, I need this. Sweet, you can provide it. These are the terms. And that's it, that's trust. And if we just zoom out a little bit, you come to realize that the majority of the trust structures of the world today were built in an analog native generation or generations. I don't know how many of you remember maybe reading The Jungle by Upton Sinclair in middle school. This was a book that was written in the early 1900s, and it was about the quality and food safety standards that were in butcher houses, I don't think that's the right word, but slaughterhouses in the Midwest. And it brought to light, it created this transparency around, well, the food safety inside of these slaughterhouses is atrocious. And out of that was born the FDA. And that was less than, 150 years ago. Like if you have a grandmother and you call her and you talk to her tonight, she will have known someone that was born before the FDA was created. So it really hasn't been that long. And the internet kind of we're less than 3 decades into the internet being a global thing. And so blockchain and crypto and FinTech and insurance, all of this, it's nothing more complicated than shifting analog native trust structures into a digitally native environment to where, hey, let's trust technology to help humans get out of their own way for a second. Because historically, when you give humans a lot of power and a lot of control and a lot of money, and then you wrap that behind closed doors where you can't see what's going on, the humans in that room just tend to do kind of somewhat nefarious things. And all of the technologies that we're talking about, all they do is serve to open that door a little bit so that people can look in and say, yeah, that sounds right, or you shouldn't be doing that. That way we can all shake hands in a more global and trusted fashion.
And I have to ask this question because still it gives me when I think of what you went through. Tell the group, Anthony Fund, Ikigai, is an important fund, but when this situation on blockchain happened, FTX, they had a huge position on FTX. And they navigated that situation, and Anthony still believes in blockchain, still believes in investing in crypto, and I think that to hear from him what he went through and how he navigated is an important lesson.
Yeah, so it's November of 22. I am sitting in a hotel room in New York. I was up there for a trip, and I start getting texts and calls and news notifications, and the avalanche that was the FTX liquidity crisis and subsequent bankruptcy was starting to unfold. And this was before Thanksgiving, before elections, and one of the businesses that I run is a hedge fund. We've got about 300 LPs all around the world, every continent except Antarctica. And we run a pretty liquid strategy, trade frequently. And it just so happened that week we had just shy of 90% of our assets on FTX. And we ended up being the 18th largest creditor in that bankruptcy, which is not the top of the list that you want to be at. You would prefer not to be on that list at all. And as an officer in the military, a big part of your training is doing the right thing when no one's watching, doing the right thing when it feels like the whole world is crumbling around you. And I remember we have this monthly partners call with all of those 300 LPs. And so we kind of called a relatively emergent, moved the schedule up on it a bit, and we hopped on with all of our investors. And these are investors that are well off. You're not allowed to invest in a hedge fund due to accredited investor type of qualifications. This was not their rent money. And they're looking to us for advice. And I just got on the call and I told them, listen, all of us are gonna be okay. Every single one of us is still gonna have a roof over our head. Again, we're still gonna have parents that love us, friends and family that love us and care about us. We're still gonna be able to put food on the table. It's gonna be all right. Just lift your head up. I know it's painful. First thing we did before that was obviously take accountability and take responsibility. It was our fault. It's bad risk management. No way around that. It was, no one's responsibility but mine and my business partner, Travis. On the other side of that, lift your head up. It's gonna be okay. I'm not gonna die, right? Let's press forward. And 48 hours after that event happened, bankruptcy here, business, your building's like up in smoke. It was the most confident I had ever been in my entire life, because obviously big failure, you get stronger on the other side of failure. And what was really crystallized is that my self-worth and my value and my self-confidence came from what's in here and what's up here, who I am, who I care about, what I care about. It was not a number in a bank account. It was not a title on LinkedIn. It was, who's Anthony? And a little strange to say it, I'm glad that I went through it. I'm better because of it. And I still believe in it, that we trusted a centralized institution and we shouldn't have. The big premise of blockchain is distribution and decentralization, is that you're able to create handshakes with people that you've never met, and you're trusting the little piece of technology that sits in between to take care of ensuring that both sides of the handshake follow through on what they said they were going to do. And that institution did not follow through. But it wasn't the technology that failed, it was the institution that failed.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's super. And that really not only is the story, I think that it explains very well what is blockchain. I even understand it better and better from that
I appreciate
story. Misraín, you also participate in a kind of a very creative way of approaching insurance, reinsurance. It's an exchange. Could you share what you see for Puerto Rico, what you see happening, what you're doing in your company?
I think generally I could speak very quickly about the insurance value chain and how the insurance value chain, some of the building blocks of the insurance value chain. On one side of the value chain, you have risk that needs to be protected. And that's supply of risk. On the other side, you have the capital that is going to support that risk. And then in the middle of that, you have several layers of connections. There's different connections, right? I think successful companies, innovative companies, companies of the modern Puerto Rico, right? Companies of the fintech space are looking at that value chain. You're looking at inefficiencies within that value chain. You're looking at friction within that value chain and saying, how can we eliminate those? So two things, right? Simplify those frictions or eliminate them altogether by using technology, by using data, by using artificial intelligence. And I think that's what I'm excited about in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has a workforce, right, that is developing bilingual, right? It's finance and tech savvy, and I encourage the students here to continue to pursuing that, right? Those areas, technology, data, AI, those fields of the future, right? Those jobs of the future. Continue pursuing that because I think that's what the future of insurance and reinsurance is going to be like. So in the middle of all of that, you have a marketplace of exchange, which exchanges risk and capital, right? And if you could do it efficiently, you could use data and technology to simplify tremendously the steps to make it cheaper, to reduce loss ratios, to make more profitable insurance, and and everyone pretty much happy along the way. I think that's the goal. The goal. So.
Okay. I have a lot more questions, but I would like to open to Rubén if you would like to do some questions or help us to see what the audience would like to.
Well, first of all, congratulations to all of you. I think it's an incredible experience for all of us sitting here, and we really appreciate that. I'll open up the floor for any questions, but meanwhile, I think Bill, I've obviously been involved with the success of Advantage just from the beginning, being a part of it, and I think every one of your employees is grateful for the incredible opportunity that you've given them to be part of an incredible organization. And I think what makes Advantage so great is the fact that it's a global enterprise focused in getting resources from Puerto Rico, people to work in things that are completely different than what we're used to seeing. And I think the question that I would like to ask you is, why is the insurance industry in Puerto Rico so focused on the domestic sector when there's so many opportunities internationally? How can we shift that interest in the domestic people, the people that are more involved in just being a part of the industry in terms of seeing what's out there rather than in what's inside the island?
That's a tough question, Rubén. But I would say that what's important is to create an environment where entrepreneurial business people who can see opportunities in different places can act and build things. And the domestic insurance companies are companies that were built by entrepreneurs from another time and are serving a market that's important. And their focus is on serving their particular customers, and that's what they could see. The implementation of Act 399 and a variety of the other different acts of the Puerto Rican government to essentially create incentives for entrepreneurial business people to set up shop here, looking at opportunities in other places, has really created that environment for companies like Advantage to build here, but be looking in different places for opportunities as opposed to here. And I think that the International Financial Center, we also have PRIA, the Puerto Rico International Insurance Association, and PRIBA, the Puerto Rico International Bankers Association, which essentially band together the leaders of those different companies to protect them from regulatory change that might be harmful to that environment, but also to promote opportunities and to exchange ideas. I think that's the most important thing, is to have an environment and culturally be focused on, one of the things that we do in our company, again, is really just to try to create a culture among all of the team to embrace change and innovation as a continuous state of affairs. It's not like we're going to ever accomplish anything. We accomplish things all the time, but we're never going to arrive. We're constantly going to be running at opportunities and changes. And that culture, like embedding that in the society even more. I come from Texas, and I was in Austin, Texas for many years of my young life. And there was a very strong entrepreneurial culture where you were encouraged to try to think of ideas and to embrace change. And that just meant that you had a growing army of innovative, creative thinkers who believed that they could do things, and they're trying to do things. And if they're in an environment where the regulatory environment and the business environment supportive of that, then they're going to find and do things. That's, my thought is that basically having that environment and building that culture is what will make that even grow more.
Great, incredible. Anthony, you mentioned something that really struck with me, which is stories are human, right? And handshake is something that insurance is all about, right? It's a promise to help you. And one of the things that I think we're yet to see in the insurance industry, particularly in the international insurers, is the mix between contracts and blockchain and crypto. That's something that I feel that regulators in Puerto Rico are very skeptic about. How can we help regulators understand that insurance and crypto can really go together?
That's probably the common answer of just education. The culture thing works both ways. That if you have a bad culture, bad reputation, it makes people very apprehensive. And so, crypto is born out of, hey, it's magic internet money that drug dealers are using to buy and sell drugs on the internet. And that brand has stuck around. It's only been, a decade and a half since Bitcoin was invented. And so it's still very, very early. The internet has been around for coming on 50 years from now. And guess what the internet was used for when it initially came out? It was also relatively nefarious things. That is just a byproduct of innovative technologies, is that the early adopters tend to be on the less regulated side of the spectrum. It's a nice way of putting it, but that's certainly where they land. And so part of it is time and part of it is brand. And thankfully, the way that the world is moving right now, you've seen a culture shift in the last half decade, 2 kind of election cycles, to where story is now driving a lot more decision making for broader populations than legacy media, for example. Legacy media, CNBC, CNN, Fox News, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, whoever, those are relatively closed ecosystems that are controlled by a very small percentage of people, and they have kind of vested interest in the information that ends up getting put out to the broader population. And thankfully, over the last half decade or so, we've seen this rise of more independent media that are able to share stories of what's actually happening. What's actually happening with big pharma, big food, big tech, big government. What's going on behind those closed doors? And you'll see, whether you like him or not, like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has a massive, massive platform, and he does not have someone behind closed doors pulling the strings saying, hey, you need to talk about this way. You need to talk about this way. Part of the reason why you've seen such a rise with that kind of platform is authenticity, is he is out there having a conversation with someone sitting across with him, searching for truth. There's not a bias to one side or another or vice versa. It's just seeking to understand. And that type of culture is infectious. The humans are so tribal. We all want a role in our tribe. We want to feel valued in that tribe. We want to have a purpose. And if culture starts shifting around to questioning things a little more and seeking to understand and seeking truth, as opposed to having really strong opinions that are strongly held, have a strong opinion, but be open to changing your mind. And that culture is shifting, and it'll have a massive impact on exactly the challenge that you just brought up.
Awesome. Misraín, you mentioned something really interesting, which is that insurance is typically boring, stale. And when we think about reinsurance, which is in fact, the bigger capacity around the world in terms of, who actually is covering your risk, right? It's the reinsurance market. It's a market that's very boring and stale. Yet it seems like you found a way to change that, and you sort of put Puerto Rico in the middle of that. How do you see Puerto Rico becoming the new era of reinsurance? To me, that's just so fascinating.
Yeah. I think we thanks for the question, by the way. I think we touched up on some of those points, right? Puerto Rico has some unique advantages, I think. You have a knowledgeable population, you have a bilingual population, you have a great location, you have a regulatory environment that is inviting innovation, right? And that should continue to do that. It should continue to align itself with innovative long-term incentive as opposed to like short-term incentives for global insurance companies and reinsurance companies. I think Puerto Rico should look at the displacement that's going on in other areas of the world when it comes to insurance. Quick example, Brexit in London, right? In London, it created a little bit of a dislocation where companies had to leave the domicile if they were not able to comply with the rules of that new regulatory regime. That creates opportunities. Puerto Rico could be a hub that assumes some of those opportunities in the right environment, with the right companies, with the right innovation in place. I think the sky is the limit for Puerto Rico, to be honest, when it comes to reinsurance and becoming a hub of growth and innovation. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll seek for questions in the audience, but meanwhile, Bill, there's this misconception that international insurers are just focused on clients around the world, whether they're high net worth individuals or companies. But there's actually a way in which international insurers can also help Puerto Rico enterprises, particularly in areas like funding exclusions, deductibles, and things that the domestic sector does not cover. Can you explain or help us understand how international insurers really interact with the domestic insurance sector?
We do a little bit at Advantage of insurance with domestic business. It does require that we get special dispensation from the insurance commissioner to do that. Mainly we've done that in the form of captive insurance arrangements where we've been able to provide captive business services, which we do. Also, Rubén does this kind of a business to companies in Puerto Rico who want to self-insure various kinds of insurance risks that they have. And that's a business model that the domestic insurers generally aren't really very focused on. The international insurers happen to be very focused on that globally in lots of different places. We have those businesses in the US, in Cayman, and we do a little bit in Puerto Rico. But we have most recently started to actually do more of that, where we've found that we can get permission from the insurance commissioner to set up that kind of business. So that's more of a, as opposed to a regulatorily designed feature, it's more of the international insurance sector has the knowledge and expertise in that area, but it also has the innovative spirit to go and push for the opportunity to do things where it sees someone else is not doing, and that's what's kind of developed in that area. And I think there's other areas in the market that are like that, where there may be opportunities to fill market void where the domestic insurance company just isn't interested, but the international insurance part of the business has experience with that. So it's something that we're very interested in that.
So Anthony, there's something very interesting that happens with insurance companies, which is that they have to invest their money.
Yeah.
And typically how well they invest their money comes back to how well they can pay claims. Is that a way where crypto really aligns better with insurance company?
Oh, my knee-jerk reaction would probably be no. The crypto assets in the space are so stunningly volatile that it's probably not a good fit. And I think there's primarily just one that would be an insurance policy in and of itself, and the only one that has really proven to solve a real world problem, and that's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an insurance policy against monetary and fiscal policy irresponsibility from central banks and governments globally. If central banks and governments globally keep printing infinite money and they keep having irresponsible monetary and fiscal policy, the debasement of the decrease in the purchasing power of that currency is just going to continue. If you have held $1 in your bank account since you were born, you can buy a lot less with that today than when you were born. And most humans on the planet really only care about enough money to put a roof over their head and put food on the table and get to and from work and do life. It's not a whole lot more complicated than that. And the way that central banks and governments are running their systems is that year in and year out, it gets harder and harder for the everyday person to actually do that. And so to the extent that the insurance company wants an insurance policy against that problem, then yeah, Bitcoin's solid. But other than that, probably not.
So I want to jump in just real quick though before you go to the next questioner, and that is that we are in the process of developing a variable universal life insurance policy that holds digital assets where the buyer of the policy is basically in a variable policy. The buyer of the policy is taking the investment return risk on the assets in the policy. So it's not really suitable, as Anthony said, for an insurance company to take the risk of guaranteeing the performance of the policy with regards to using digital assets. They won't be able to do it effectively, and they'll go out of business probably as things exist today. But in a variable universal life policy like that, where the investor basically wants to invest in the digital assets, Bitcoin or whatever, and they do it inside of a life insurance policy, that's a really good combination of these two different types of assets, and a long existing financial asset like a life insurance policy, and a new, very volatile, very uncertain asset like a digital asset like that. And essentially, you can protect yourself from the tax consequences of the extraordinary variability of the digital assets inside a policy, and even still trade them in the policy if the policy is set up with a trading design kind of a thing. So that's just starting to happen now, because historically digital assets were essentially frowned upon by bank regulators, and it was difficult to get banks and others to custody those assets, which you need to have these kind of policies. But now recently that's changed, and that's starting to come into focus. So we're expecting to see a pretty substantial development in terms of those kind of policies in the very near future. Okay. A big change.
We will have a lot more opportunities, I'm sure, of doing conversations. I think we have time for one or two more questions.
Sure. Hi. Thank you for letting me have this question. We've talked a little bit about how Puerto Rico's reputation is improving, and how obviously your companies are going to provide jobs for people here on the island. But I was just wondering more broadly, what are the economic benefits that the everyday Puerto Rican people who are not in the finance and insurance industry, just the island as a whole, how will they benefit from your industry?
I can start with one. By the way, I also want to highlight that Pablo, who just asked that question, he's also a returning diaspora. He went to work to study in the United States, came back, and he's helping build some of what we're doing here. But I do appreciate the question, and I think there's direct benefit that we provide, right? If you invest in the island and you have high-paying jobs, high-quality, high-paying jobs in the island, that's number one, direct benefit. But there's also indirect benefits that you have, right? Those high-paying jobs, those individuals are spending in the island, right? They are buying resources, they're buying services, they're buying products. It becomes a bit of a multiplier effect because those folks that you're buying from now buy from others. And it allows a sustainable economic environment that allows folks like myself and Pablo to see that Puerto Rico is a flourishing economy. And we could come back to Puerto Rico. We don't have to depend on exiting, leaving the island for economic gains. That's my input.
Yeah, I think that the first concept that came to my mind was the velocity of money, is that if you have a greater pool of capital and economic activity occurring in a place, the opportunity for orthogonal innovation to come up is just going to be higher. And it's an unknown as to where that ends up showing up. But if velocity of money in an overall ecosystem goes up, you've got more transactions, more handshakes, more people interacting with one another on the island overall, as opposed to needing to go back to the States for any given opportunity. So it's a little bit of a rising tide lifts all ships type of answer there.
We really thank you for being part of our conversation, and really we appreciate really that you.
Thanks for having me.